Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to the new series called Nukkad Dialogues on my Facebook page. Today I am joined by a great and best-selling author, my friend Neil D. Silva sir. Hello sir and welcome to the show.
Hello, Ishan, and it's a great pleasure to be the first guest on your show. Hope it,
So
reaches out to a lot of people and it does what you expect from it.
yeah, Neil sir is an Indian author as you know of six, now seven I think published books, and his debut novel was Maya's New Husband, and he is one of the best selling horror genre writer in India these days. He was the recipient of the Entertainer of the Year award at the Literary Awards 2015, which was organized by Author Inc. Publications and Inside Stories. He also won at the Short Story Competition 2015 hosted by the Delhi Literature Festival in association with Readomania. In 2017, Neil Sir was named as one of the top seven Indian horror writers by UK's Desi Blitz magazine. So it's truly an honor to have you, sir, this evening.
Thank you. Same here.
So without further ado, I would like to start with this question: that how is this lockdown treating you? Because you know it's very depressing time, but for creative people like us, it is rather very good time to focus on our writings.
I don't know, Ishan, how it is because we authors have anyway people who like to live alone and coop ourselves up in the room and write. So that way it is okay because I have always been an introvert. I'm always like a kind of a home bird sitting at home. I enjoy that more than going out and roaming. So that way it has been good. But then it is also working at a psychological level because now you're feeling bound. You're feeling like okay, earlier we had that freedom that we could go out and we could do what we want, but now we don't have that freedom. There is a sense of paranoia, and then when you're hearing these numbers, it's very depressing that we are not yet come over the we are not come to a stage where we can say that okay, this is a situation that we can control. So that is not happening yet. There is no hope so far. So that is somehow, eating us. But
Yeah.
otherwise, creatively, that is what is hampering our creativity. But then,
Yes.
you cannot let that thing win over you. You have to somehow do what you like. And I like to write, so that is how I'm keeping myself occupied. I'm writing. Like have you have gone live. Even I have a YouTube channel now, so I'm also trying different things somehow to keep myself sane.
Yeah, and your kids are writing, they are becoming writers in this lockdown, and you have also published a book called Ringa Ringa Roses on Amazon.
Yes, yes. So the kids also picked up something from I don't know where, and they also thought that okay, chalo, let us write something, and they did it. So that's a good thing. We now the time is such that we are hanging on to very small bits of good news. Even they are something that are keeping us on the move. So
Yeah.
that way, yes, it's quite exhilarating to see that. And anyway, it is your first foray into the literary world. So yes,
Yes. I remember our conversation from last year when you were in IIT Kanpur, that you mentioned that your writing and your inclination towards horror genre was much influenced from your father's collection of the Dracula books. So
yes.
can you tell us how and when did you start thinking about writing on horror genre, and what inspired you to our audience?
So this is a story that goes long back when I was just about, in grade 7, 8 at that time. So my dad, he had a big collection of books. That that I have already told you that he had a huge collection, and they were books across genres. He was a kind of book collector. He would collect books. He would not read them, but he would collect them. So the reader would be me. I used to be alone at home in the afternoons mostly. My mother used to go for a nap and all. So then I would then pick up whichever book I could get, and my the inclination would invariably go towards the horror books. So then I would pick them up and I would read them, and this was in that age, early teenage, which was when I read books like Dracula, Frankenstein, Dorian Gray, and somehow that those gothic worlds, they started influencing me. And at the same time, my dad was also a freelance translator. He used to translate movies from Hindi to English. and he had clients from all over. I mean, all the big producers were his clients at that time. I'm talking about the late 80s and the early 90s. So he was a freelancer, so his name never came in the movie titles, but he was the one who doing the work. And one of his biggest clients were the Ramses. So all the
Yeah.
Ramses stories used to come to our house, and my dad used to subtitle them, and they were all on a very short deadline. So he had to sometimes work all through the night. So when he used to work all through the night, sometimes to give him company, I would sit next to him. And when he was translating movies like Virana, Dark Bangla, Tehkana, and all, I was sitting next to him, a child, and I was looking at those songbooks with the pictures of the monsters, and somehow I was not scared, but I was more fascinated with the story. Maybe that is where I picked up all this, the fascination to write horror. That
Yeah.
maybe that's the story.
So, when you published your first book, Maya's New Husband, how has
Yeah.
been your journey from that to Ringa Ringa Roses in 2020 during a pandemic?
A very roller coaster of a ride, I would say. So Maya's New Husband was my first book, and that I don't know. I was engaged in a business at that time. I had a coaching class, and suddenly, when I was 39, this was the year 2014. At that time, I felt, kind of suffocation crept over me. Like, okay, will I be just teaching in a classroom all through my life? That was my something that started nagging me. And I wanted to do something creative. I was always a creative person. I used to write stories even as a child. So then my wife told me that if you're feeling so cooped up, then why don't you write a novel? I was already doing freelance writing for other people, for other clients. So my wife told, write something, put it out in your own name. And then there was this NaNoWriMo going on at that time.
Yeah.
And I participated in that. And I had this story in my mind already. So then I wrote it. And that story was published in the early 2015. And finally, it became a book. So this is Maya's New Husband for those who do not know about it. And this is how the book became. It was on Amazon KDP first, just a self-published book, and then it hit number one in the horror category. It became a bestseller. People still talk about it after 5 years, and then it got publishers. It got a screen adaptation deal, and then it happened. Then I started writing more and more books. Somewhere along the way, I met a literary agent. Suhail Mathuri is my literary agent of the Book Bakers, and he started pitching the other books that I was writing, and then I got a few good contracts. Like last year, I had two major books out, and this was one of them is Yakshini. This was with Rupa Publications, and it was also pitched by the Book Bakers, that is Suel Mathur. And this was the other biggie that I had last year. This is a Penguin book, Haunted. This was co-authored with Jay Alani. He's a paranormal investigator. So from Maya's New Husband to Haunted, it
Hmm.
has been a journey of 8 books, and that's it. That's how it happened. Then I moved on from becoming a self-published author to a traditional author,
Yeah.
traditionally published author. But then when the pandemic hit us, again I felt that kind of thing, that I want to give something to my readers, because both these books, Haunted and Yakshini, had come out in October. So I
Yeah.
wanted to do something, and I am a very impatient kind of person. So then I felt like, how do I do it? Because publishers are not accepting books at this point. I already have two books that are in the pre-publishing process. They are coming out this year. So, but I
Yeah.
wanted to give something very quick, and that is the reason I wrote a book in March. And after the pandemic started, after Modi ji announced that there was going to be a lockdown, so I was also depressed for 1 or 2 days. Like, how will I stay at home all this time? And then I felt that, oh no, I will write something. That is what I can do. That is how I can keep myself stimulated. So I wrote a book, a collection of short stories, which have children as the main characters in a horror story, but they are not the basically who are children. The ones who are in phobias. They are these children who are fighting back the monsters. And also, I was very fascinated with that, and that is how my book Ringa Ringa Roses was born. And the book is only an ebook right now because, of course, it's a pandemic situation. And this is the cover of the book, Ringa Ringa Roses, and okay, it was shiny. So this is what happened this time, and then that's it. Now I'm just waiting for some of my more releases to come, and that's how my journey has been in a nutshell.
Yeah. So none of us thought that such a big pandemic would hit us and hit us so
Yeah,
bad.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but we
exactly.
we all have found our own ways to tackle this situation.
and that is how it should be. You cannot, because such situations are going to come in life. So that is what I have learned in all my years. I have learned that things are going to happen. And how John Lennon said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. So that is
Yeah.
exactly what happens. You make a plan, you think that okay, you are going to do this and this, but then something will come and it will just pull the rug up from under your feet, and then you
Yes.
don't know, what will happen. So that is how it works, and
Uh,
you have to
so
adapt. So that's what we do. We need to adapt. Yeah.
yeah. So do you have a specific writing style, or you just write, naturally, and then like you do not go into the technicality of writing?
Hmm.
Like there is a Shakespeare method of writing,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
what is your style?
Um, I have over the years, I have evolved a style which I can say is of my own. Like yes, of course, I know the three-act style. The three-act play, which we call as the Shakespearean style, and then there are so many other models of writing. But I do not go too much into that. When I am writing, I let my story flow in the way that I want to write it. So I am more, because I write horror. I am more of a pantser. So
Hmm.
I have a plot in mind, a very basic idea that these are going to be my protagonists. This is where the horror is going to come from. So the horror element is established. This is a conflict which will be in my story. So all these things I know. But after that, I do not plot the intricate details. So I do not know exact scenes how they are going to play out. So that is something that I like to sit at my computer and I like to develop as the story goes on.
Hmm.
Why I do that is why I don't plot horror very rigidly is because if I plot horror, if I know from the beginning scene by scene what is going to happen, then it becomes a very formulaic approach.
Yeah.
I like to write where I am frightening myself. So when I'm writing, I'm also discovering the story. Like when I wrote Maya's New Husband, Maya's entire journey was about finding out what is wrong with her husband. So
Hmm.
Maya is discovering things about her husband. So as she is discovering, I'm also discovering along with her. So I did not have it all charted out. Like this is what is going to happen. So I just moved with my character. Even with Yakshini, I moved with Meenakshi from her throughout her life's journey, like what she wants to do. And scene by scene, I unfold the story. Yes, having said that, I'll say that I have an idea of what is going to happen in the end. But again, the way the story goes, that end may also change. But I know a direction that okay, I'm going that way. But then it is
So you
not
have a
too.
broader layout of the story in
Yeah,
mind, and then you fill in the blanks
I
during writing the book.
I jump from one station to another. That's
So
the way I enjoy the process. Yeah.
so in this process, do you find any challenges? Any writer block, the myth called writer block, as they say. Do you find any such things?
For me, writer's block does not happen. The reason is it happens, but again, I'll tell you what it is. I'm always working on multiple projects. So I have like at different stages. So it is like one book I may be plotting and outlining, the other book I may be actually writing. Then there will be one more which my editor will be looking at. Then there will be another which will be probably in the pitching stage already. So that way I have got a pipeline. So when I'm stuck with one project, I simply move on to another. So that is basically what I do, and I let that stuck project remain. And after a few days, I invariably see like what I how I should proceed with it. So this is how basically for me the writer's block does not happen. If at all it happens, if at all I'm stuck, it might be because I am mentally blocked, like
Hmm.
my creative process. Maybe there is some like this is human life. If something happens, then you sometimes are not able to think clearly. So I just leave the project. I leave my writing. I do not stress over it. I go for a walk or something like that. Leave it aside for 3 4 days, and then I come back to it. That is the best way to do. But I will never wallow in that stress, like
Hmm.
how I will go about with it. And I have started doing something lately, which is to go on writing trips. Again, because of the pandemic, I'm not able to do that, but I used to do that. I just started doing it. I go on writing trips for 10 days, 15 days. I lock myself in a hotel room in a different city, away from my house, in a completely different place, and then I go and write there. So what happens is I am going with this agenda that I have to write and finish the story and come. So because I go with that motive, within those 7 days, 10 days, I can write that and come. If I
Hmm.
stay at home, then it is like आज नहीं तो कल करेंगे, कल नहीं तो परसों करेंगे. That happens. But when you go somewhere and you pay money and you stay in a hotel for that, then obviously you're going to make the most of it. So I think that works for me. So that is one way that you can, circumvent that writer's block thing.
So don't you think that hill stations would be a suitable venue for that?
A hill station, yes, I've been to Shimla last year. So last year I was invited to the Shimla International Literary Festival. So it was a 1 day event. So I was invited just for that 1 day. But what I did was I extended the stay by 7 more days. I stayed on my own expense for 7 more days. And Shimla, you know how beautiful it is. I just stayed there alone. It was a beautiful experience to stay there. And within those 7 days, I wrote. I was just I was outlining a story. So I could outline that entire story in those 7 days. And when I came back, I had a full synopsis ready, chapter-wise synopsis. So that is how it worked for me.
Yeah.
And even because I am from Mumbai, sometimes I just go to places like Lonavala and nearby places, and that is what I did again last year. So one trip I had at Lonavala, so I enjoy that, staying away a little bit, immersing myself in the story, thinking about nothing else, and cutting myself away from social media and the news world. Social media, okay, I check a little, but news world completely off. So
Yeah.
it works
I
for
think
me.
for a writer, it is important to, stay connected on social media because it
Yeah,
also gives a sense of,
yes, because
connected.
otherwise you feel very lonely. So,
Yeah.
how social media helps us today is that we don't have that sense of loneliness that earlier writers used to have.
Yeah.
Now we are connected through Facebook. So many groups are there, writing groups. I have a writing group myself. So we see that there were so many other authors who are sailing in the same boat. So now we have a very strong authors community where people are sharing ideas, talking to each other, and I think that is a very good sign because this will, when the time comes, it is strengthening our literature. The sharing of ideas which is happening, a lot of people are developing their own skills, and it is also inspiring a lot of new authors to take up the craft. So that stigma is no longer there. If you see in the 70s and all, it was believed that 70s, 80s writers बहुत गरीब होते हैं, झोला लेके घूमते हैं, चप्पल पहन के घूमते हैं, that kind of thing. That impression is no longer there. Now, if you see the
Yeah.
writers that I move around with, we go to literary festivals and all, and we stay in five-star hotels. We have the best buffet dinners, and it's a huge experience. So now I think writers are becoming richer. So that's a good sign, and that this is also because we are networked more on social media. There's so many events happening, and it's all nice. I just say that much.
So, there is a debate that has been going on for ages now. That is the ebook versus paperback debate. For
Hmm.
readers, I think many readers think that, classical paper touch is very important for a reader's experience. And for publishers also, it is a very profitable business of publishing paperbacks.
Yeah.
But in a pandemic, they are also forced to, publish ebooks. How do you see this in this present context and the future of ebooks now?
My only one thing is whether it is ebooks or paperbacks does not matter. Read. That is most important. You read from anywhere. It doesn't matter whether you're reading on an ebook or a paperback. It is a matter of personal choice. Personally speaking, I enjoy reading ebooks. My first book was an only ebook, and even now Ringa Ringa Roses is an only ebook. So why I like reading ebooks? I always read horror on ebooks. If you see my feed on my Kindle, it is all ebooks, horror. The reason is because there is some great fun when you can shut off the lights in the room and only with your Kindle you're reading the horror. The experience is totally different. It's like a cinema hall experience. So that kind of thing works. But yeah, the paperbacks will never go away because it's always a kind of collector's item. So paperbacks, I just look at them as a kind of collector's item. So if you want to collect books, paperbacks are the best. Then it is all about the smell of paper and that kind of thing and the sound of paper. But for reading itself, it doesn't matter really. Whether you are reading on an ebook or on your laptop or whether you are reading paperback, it doesn't matter. You read on a tissue paper for all I care. You read.
Yeah.
That's what I mean to say.
True. Because many there are many readers who are very purist. They want autographed books, and
But
this
I
that you
still
said, the
do.
smell of paper.
See, ebooks have still made their way into the world, right?
Yeah,
Those people were there always, and they will always be there. That people who like paperbacks. But if ebooks did not have anything to them, then they would have been a passing fad. They would have just gone away. That
true.
medium would not have worked. It is working. If it is working, it means it has a huge lobby of readers, and Amazon has really promoted itself. Monopolized also. So that because of that, ebooks are here to stay. They are not going anywhere. And today we are living in a world which is also very environmentally conscious.
Hmm.
So paperbacks mean somewhere or the other you are
Cutting down trees. Yeah.
deforestation. Yes, you are doing that. So that also is a somewhere, and we know of so many works that have been lost because they
Hmm.
were on a medium that could not be carried from one generation to another. Paperbacks don't stay. Even if you have a million copies, they are not going to stay forever. But something which is electronic, which is on the cloud, may have a longer, a more greater longevity. We don't know about that yet. But I think that both mediums have their pros and cons. We cannot just. What I don't like? I don't like people who will say, I read only paperbacks. I will not even look at an ebook. Now, that is a very narrow minded approach.
Hmm.
We should always be open to experimenting. Now, if you're not experimenting at all, if you're not checking out what an ebook is at all, if you're just saying no, I don't like it, if you're not wanting to make the move and adapt, then that is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is how I see it.
Many people email me, message me that they want to write a book,
Yeah,
and they do not have a publisher, so they want a publisher. So they ask me that should they go for a self-publishing, you think, or should they go for a traditional publisher? I see a problem in traditional publishers that they do not accept your manuscript very easily, but people are very impatient in that, and they often get to bad publishers or very small publishers that take money and they never publish your work, or they publish it or do not give you copyrights. There are many issues with that. So can you share your experience about self-publishing and as well as traditional publishing with Drupa and Heritage and many others that are coming up?
yeah. So see, the thing is, no, I have books with both, as you mentioned. With also, I was earlier self-published on Amazon Kindle. That I do that still. The reason is because when I do not have time, I do not want to wait for that 1.5 year period to get my book out into the market through a traditional publisher. That is when I go and do something on Kindle. So earlier, I have about 4 5 books which are only purely on the Kindle even now. So and the fun of having a book out on Kindle, Amazon Kindle, is that you can then control the market price, the MRP of it. You can have promotional campaigns through Amazon. The entire rights are with you. Now I have got movie deals on some of those books. So the screen adaptation deals, the rights are entirely with me. So that's a fun thing. But then having traditional books is also important, so you should also venture into that territory, but it doesn't make sense to go with a small traditional publisher. If you're really having a good approach towards writing, then try for the best, look for the best publisher, hire an agent. The reason is a book which is published with a big large publishing house, it will open a lot of doors to you. Like you will get
Yeah.
invitations to all these lit fests, and you will be acknowledged as a writer in many other places where you would probably not be as a self-published author only, which is sad because all of them are authors at the end of the day. But that is the way our literary industry is. Also, our bookstores, our traditional bookstores that we are talking about, like Crossword and Relay and Oxford. Now, these bookstores, they will not stock a self-published author, but they will stock authors which are coming from traditionally published houses. So, because this is the way, this is the scenario, traditional publishing also has its own virtues. But again, then you are sharing rights with the publisher, you are sharing rights with the agent. So that is something that hurts. But
Yeah.
then that is the reason why both modes exist. Both modes exist because both of them have their pros and cons. If one of them had only pros and no cons, then it would have been the only one to stay. But it's not happening like
Yes.
that. That's how it
Yeah.
is.
But I think the young writers are coming up. Those who are coming up, they are coming with Notion Press, and the self more self-published authors are coming up these days than traditional.
Yeah,
Do
you
you
mean
do you?
vanity published, the ones who pay to get published. Yeah.
Yes. So, how do you see the role of a literary agent in today's publishing world?
I have a couple of things to say here. First and foremost, you should hire a literary agent, or you should look for a literary agent also, only if you have that supreme confidence in your book that a good publisher will pick it up. Because if your book itself is not worth it, even a literary agent is not going to be able to salvage it. We have a very wrong notion in India, in Indian publishing, that if we hire a literary agent, then our book will always get published. That is not the case. Your book needs to also make it. In the
Yeah,
US, if you see, finding a literary agent is more difficult than finding a publisher,
true.
because their literary agents are real sticklers for quality. Here also they are. So therefore, you need to have that kind of. This is the first thing to do. Write a fabulous book. When you do
Hmm.
that, then it makes sense to have a literary agent. Now, why a literary agent will work for you is because the literary agent is contacted or networked with all the publishing houses within the country. So you may not know which publisher might be interested in the story you have written. What you will know is just names, but you don't know what the preferences of those publishers are. But the
Yeah,
literary agent will know that. So therefore, the literary agent will send the books to those publishers who will have a better chance of picking up your book. Secondly, the literary agent will also prepare a pitch for you. That is what happens, otherwise an author, when he directly shoots off a mail, it usually is not seen because the pitch is not good. Now,
hmm.
making a pitch, preparing the pitch is something that the literary agents are proficient in. So that is what they will do. Literary agent will also know now within a publishing house, like a publishing house like Penguin, with whom I was published. Now, Penguin itself has 5 commissioning editors. So one of them looks at romance, one of them looks at thrillers, one of them looks at non-fiction. It is like that. Now, what
Hmm.
happens is if a new author writes to a publishing house like Penguin directly, then you don't know which commissioning editor it is going to. And if it goes to the wrong commissioning editor, there and then the book is not seen. It is put in the dump, right? So that is another thing that the literary agent will know and will do better for you. So these are many reasons why it is. And later on, of course, there were many more. Like when the agreement comes, the agent will, help you get a better advance. Look at all the
Hmm.
clauses. If there's something like a movie deal, the agent is again very helpful with advice. So all these things really matter. So it's very good to have a literary agent and consider that agent to be like a partner in your profession,
Hmm.
rather than just somebody who is a literary agent is not an employee. He's a partner
Yeah.
for you. So that is, if that is the kind of relationship you are building with your agent, then you will have better success as a published author.
Hmm. Uh, you mentioned that you work on multiple tasks, multiple
Yeah,
projects.
yeah.
So can you share with us about your current projects that you are working on and your future projects that you wish to work on? Some themes or some titles?
So I have 2 books coming out. One is almost on the verge of release. Everything is done. So this book is The Spirits Talk to Me. It is
Hmm.
co-authored with the paranormal investigator Sarbajit Mohanty, and it is going to be published by Hachette India. So this book is a September release. So we are working on the final, look of the book. Then there is a book which is still, in the pre-publishing stage, Ghost Whispers. This is going to be published with Rupa a few months later. We don't have a date yet on that, so we are waiting for that. Apart from that, I'm developing a series, web series. So I'm writing for it as well. So that is, I cannot reveal a lot about it, but that is going to be something major, big, and something to look forward to. It's a horror web series, so that is something which is also parked and which is on which I'm working. And then there are a couple of books that are in development, completely new.
Hmm.
So this is what is keeping me busy. So it's a
So
fun time.
do you wish to digress from this genre and do you wish to try another genre for say romance or something?
At the moment, I write horror not because I have a market for horror, not because of that, but because horror is the thing that I know to write best. So that is the reason,
Yeah.
and the stories that come to me are all horror stories. So that is the reason I write horror. So as far as I see in the near future, I don't see myself digressing from this genre because I have got lots of horror stories to tell, and I know that I can tell them well. So I am going to stick with this genre for a while. But I also at the same time have a very nice, fantasy story in my mind. So, and fantasy is another genre that excites me a lot because I love to create worlds and characters. So I have that in mind. But fantasy writing takes a lot of commitment. You have to be
Hmm.
totally dedicated to it, and you cannot multitask when you are writing a fantasy story. I'm talking of something of a huge scale, an epic scale. You cannot multitask. So I'm waiting for that. When everything is done, that is the time when I will start my fantasy project. I don't know when that will happen.
Yeah, we are waiting for that actually. So, uh, to end this session, what advice do you wish to give to aspiring writers who are interested in writing about fiction?
The first and foremost thing is that write the story that is totally uh, put your whole heart into it and write the story as your heart tells you to write. Do not go into what market trends are there, who will read my book, and will the publishers accept the story or not. So don't go by that. Don't go by which story sold the best, which was the current bestseller, so I'll write a story like that. Don't do that. Write something that is true to your heart, that is absolutely pure, and that is a story that will brand you and that will make a name for you. So my own example stands there. When I wrote Maya's New Husband, the story of a woman married to a serial killer, now that kind of story was not there at all. There was no example for me to see that, okay, will this kind of story work? But I did not even think like who will publish me, whether anybody will even read it. I just wrote the story from the heart, like how I thought, how I saw it. I wrote it. That's all that I did, and the story worked. And a lot of famous authors that I speak to, they say the same thing, that we never looked at market trends. The people who actually work and become successful are those who start their own trend.
Yeah,
Like we have examples, so many examples all through history. The people who have written path-breaking stories away from the clutter are those who have achieved success, not those who have just captured a trend and made it their own. So I would just say, stay true to what you think and make something which is you know close to your heart. Don't go by trends.
yeah. So, thank you very much, Neil sir, for your time and for this wonderful session. I would like to ask one last question, if you permit.
Okay, sure, sure.
So what will be the first thing that you will do once the lockdown get over and we get back to the, new normal?
I have a lot of meetings pending. I have to meet my producers, brainstorm with them. But of course, that is not the first thing that I'll do. The first thing that I will do when everything is, totally, completely safe, is I
Back to
will take
normal.
my family and we will go to have a nice buffet lunch or dinner at a nice place, and forget everything. Like put this whole scenario situation behind us and just enjoy and look forward to a better life. So that is
Yeah,
what I will. That I am actually waiting, like it to end so that we can have those times, because even before we used to do that, go out, eat once a week. So that is probably the thing that I miss the most. So that is what
yeah,
I'll do.
great. So thank you very much, sir, and thank you everyone who joined us live. This video will be available on YouTube channel, so my YouTube channel, so you can subscribe to it. And Neil sir also have a YouTube channel. We'll provide the link in the comment section, so you can go and subscribe to his channel as well. He just crossed, I think, 100 subscribers recently, so
Yeah, it's
congratulations to
already
you,
gone
sir.
above 120 now. Just today, we had 20 subscribers more.
Oh,
Thank you
that's
so
great.
much, Ishan, for having me on the show. I really enjoyed talking to you. Even at IIT Kanpur, when we met, even though it was a brief chat, we had a very, good conversation. Even at that time, so I really look forward to having many more conversations with you. Maybe when the lockdown gets over, we can reconnect on something else. So yes, best of luck to all the people who are also listening to us, and hope this pandemic gets over soon and we come out victorious out of it. And yes, keep reading my books. That is something that I'm obliged to say at a quiz show. Thank you.